Here we go. We're recording. This is a new camera. I got a new camera. The last, so to make sure that that would go right now. But what I wanted to do was go online today and show you and show you this. I'm going to have to go and see what's wrong here, because I've done this in class before. I've been able to go online and go on the internet in class. So I don't know why I can't do it, but I can't do it. And I have an account and everything. So what we're going to do today, as I was hoping to go, it's not May the 111th, it's May the 11th. I'm going to go over the I want to talk about, you've seen the maps, you've had maps, you've had and basically an overview of the global economy and a lot of things that are related to the global economy. I may go over some of that at the end if I have a little bit of time left. But what I'm going to do, what I have prepared for you, and I did prepare this in case it didn't work, so we're okay. It's just that I wanted to get online. I thought it would be more helpful for you to really show you directly. Let me just try to work around that. And what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about first what's called the Harmonized Coding System of International Trade. And what that is a coding system that enables when countries trade with each other. Most of the countries of the world, when they trade with each other, when you ship something, you have to put a code, and it's called a harmonized standard, a harmonized system code, and that so that every country that uses the harmonized system, the code means the same. If it's a specific kind of good, the code means something. And so when you send something to a particular country, it's coded, and that code says what the item is, and it says what the tariff. So when you ship, every country knows, okay, that's this particular good. We know it has this tariff, there's no surprises, everybody agrees in order to allow trade to take place. So because of that, there's trade statistics, and we can use those trade statistics as economists in order to analyze international trade. So what I'm going to do is talk to you about the harmonized system, so that you can you can access these databases and study the trading that goes on in the global economy. So I'm going to show you the harmonized system, and then I'm going to show you the trade database. Very, very good trade database that you can use. And then we're going to go and talk about national accounts. A little bit of the national accounts and that database, that information, and where you can get that information on the internet. And then we'll move on, and if we have time, we'll talk about definitions of GDP. So we'll begin. What we're doing here, you've seen some general maps that give you an overview of the world economy. Now we're going to talk about data. How do you find how country? We've talked about trade. We've talked about trade. Now we're going to say how you can find how you can analyze data on trade. How you can how that's organized. The system is organized, and how you can find data on that, and where you can find that, and how you can use that data. So we'll get started by starting about the harmonized system. It's called the Harmonized Commodity System and Coding, Description and Coding System. And the Harmonized Commodity Description and Coding System, which is commonly known as the Harmonized System, or HS. That's the term that you'll usually see. HS is an internationally standardized, what's called nomenclature, for the description, classification, and coding of goods. So any goods that are traded have a code. So in 2007, there were 200 countries and customs or economic units, including there are 131 contracting parties to what's called the HS, the Harmonized System Convention, that are representing about 98% of world trade. So almost all of the trade in the world that takes place is done under this system. There's only a few countries that are not, but 98% of the world trade, they use the harmonized system as the basis for custom tariffs and for the compilation of international trade statistics. It provides a coding system that's based on a hierarchical structure, starting with the section at the higher level and getting more specific, the chapter, heading, and subheading levels. So we have 3 levels. Chapter, heading, subheading. And that is for what's called a 6-digit code. So there's a code. If I ship computer, if I'm shipping, selling computers, there's a code. I won't touch that anymore. There's a code. If I'm shipping this water, there's a code for this beverage. Or the cameras, there's a code, a specific code for that. Any item that you can see, there's a specific code under which that is classified, so that when you ship something internationally, that code is written in. And that's done first at the 6-digit code, and then each countries can also have more codes. For example, in Japan, Japan uses, within the country beyond the 6-digit code, there's 3 more digits. And so that gets very specific, that's done within Japan. But that's not for international. If goods are shipped internationally, we use the 6-digit code. So that is, the 2 digits represent the chapter in which the goods are classified. The next 2 digits identify the heading in the chapter where the goods are described. And the last 2 digits represent the most detailed subdivision of that. So now we'll go and talk specifically about here's some examples of that. I've got 3 examples here. Here is 270900 or 2709.00. So 270900. And what is that? Well, this is the first 2 digits. That's the 2-digit level. That's the broadest level. There's main chapters, and then, but this is the 2-digit level that tells you that this product is mineral fuels, mineral oils, and products of their distillation, bituminous substances, mineral waxes. So that's your mineral fuels. That's like petroleum-based products. So that's what the 2-digit code 27 means. And then the next 2. Oils, petroleum oils, and oils, this 09 means oils, petroleum oils, and oils obtained from bituminous materials, crude oil. So this is basically crude oil. So if you're shipping, shipping on a container, a ship comes in, the last 2 digits, there's no further subdivision, it's just zeros. So this is crude oil. This is basically crude oil. The crude oil, as a ship comes in, it's 2709. And then the ship will come in, and then when you declare it, it'll say the value of the shipment and how much of the product is shipped. That's an example of crude oil. The next example I have here is 030345. 030345. Okay, and that 03. The 03 is fish and crustaceans, mollusks, and other aquatic invertebrates. So that's fish. So 03 is for fish. And then there's another, the next 03. So that's the first 03. The next 03 is fish frozen. So if I'm shipping frozen fish, that's kind of the way that a lot of fish is shipped. It's shipped frozen, excluding fish fillets and other fish meat of heading 0304. So there's another category called 0304. So that's fish. That's frozen. Now so it's frozen. So frozen fish, any fish that's frozen. Well, as you know, much of the fish that goes, for example, to the Tsukiji market is frozen, especially your maguro. Almost all the maguro that comes in, or most of the maguro that goes into that market is frozen. So here we're talking about, this is fish frozen Atlantic and Pacific bluefin tunas. So that's, I believe that's the maguro. Your standard maguro is your bluefin tuna, and so then they have what the scientific name of it is, excluding fillets, fish meat of 0304, and edible fish, fuller subheadings, and there's some other areas. But this is, for example, if you're shipping, that's going to be maguro that's coming in to the port here in Tokyo, and that's the 0.45. So that is a bluefin tuna. So if you're shipping bluefin tuna coming in the market, that's going to code as 030345. So if you want to study the shipment of bluefin tuna, if you want to study the trade of that, you would just use that code, and that code will get you all that data. Now another example, here's one. This is kind of an interesting one because some products are fairly new. Some products are fairly new, and this is one. This is 847149. 847149. Okay. And that is 80. That's the 84. So the first two, that's the chapter. That's 84. That's the chapter. And that's nuclear reactors, boilers, machinery, mechanical appliances, and parts thereof. So that looks like you're talking about nuclear, but actually the next one is the 71, and that says machinery and mechanical appliances. So mechanical appliances is also a part of that. Automatic data processing machines, that's 71. That's this, 71. Automatic data processing machines and units thereof, magnetic or optical readers, machines for transcribing data onto data media in encoded form, and machines for processing such data not elsewhere specified, or blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, so that still doesn't tell you a lot, other than it's automatic data processing. That's kind of computers. Automatic data processing machines. But now the third one, the 49, the last two digits, are automatic data processing machines presented in the form of systems not elsewhere classified in item number 8471.30 or 8471.41. And in fact, what it is desktop computers. So that's how you classify. And so this is, because this is a new, that is a fairly new, in the last 10 years ago, that didn't really exist. And so they've set up the system, and they had to give it a number, and so it ended up here. So if you want to find desktop computers, I'm sorry, I think that means laptop. Did I mean laptop? Let me check on that, because I'm thinking it's laptop. I think I'm talking about laptop computers. I'm going to have to check on that. I might have made a mistake here. But the point is that some of these are, it gets very specific products. So if you're interested in particular products, for example, let's say you got a job and you were supposed to analyze a certain industry, and you're analyzing a country's, you want to see what their trade is in the industry, you can use these codes to find out the data of the products that are shipped. And you can also do that, for example, if you're looking at Japanese data, you can look at it by port. The ports that come into the ports, that including the airports, particular ports, each port has its own, the data is available to tell you what products are shipped into each port, in and out of each port in this country. So you can do a lot, there's a lot of analysis, a lot of data. If you're interested in, like I say, if you're going to analyze the auto industry, say your job is to analyze the auto industry, or analyze the camera industry, or camera lenses, or all of these, or machine tools. All of those industries, you can, by using the system, you can get very precisely and find out exactly how much product is being shipped in and out of each country that's a member of this harmonized system convention. Okay, so you can use this in order to find out all of that information. It's an enormous amount of information available. And as I say, if you're going to study anything to do with international trade, and basically if you're going to be studying an industry, if you're going to be, say, an analyst, say you're working for an investment bank, or say you're working at the Asian Development Bank, or some place like that. Let's say you get a job there. Well, this is the kind of thing, the kind of information that you're going to need to access. Or even if, say, you're writing a journal, you work for a newspaper, or like the Nikkei, and you're writing about industries. Again, you're going to want to know how to access this kind of information. So this is quite valuable system. And I just want to give you a little bit more background about this. It enables participating countries, which is almost all of the countries in the world, to classify traded goods on a common basis for customs purposes. So in customs, in and out, the classified system enables participating countries to monitor international trade agreements. So this is one of the important things, is that let's say you're shipping, let's say you're a shipper. You're shipping a product and you ship to China, and China says, oh, well, I'm charging you this tariff. And you're saying, well, no, your international trade agreement says that this is the tariff that you charge to ship it. You're charging me too much. And they might argue, oh, no, well, that's not the right product. Well, then they're going to say, well, what's the product? And you're going to say, well, it's this product. Is this product under this code? You agree that that's the code? Oh, yes. Well, then that's the tariff you have to charge me. So if countries try to violate the trade agreements, that's done by saying whether or not if you're trying to trade in a particular product under the countries accept that code, then they have to charge that tariff. So that's another very important thing. But it's also, and this is very recent, the harmonized coding system is increasingly being used to improve resource management, especially for endangered species, and also for, and as we'll see here, forestry products is another example. So if you're interested in the environment, for example, this is also something that you'll be interested in learning about, because you can track trade, whether trade in endangered species or species that are potentially endangered. And this is true, for example, in fisheries. Fish are in much of the ocean are being overfished, and so the question is, we need better monitoring. We need better monitoring of trade in seafood, in order to monitor whether there's overfishing that's taking place. And so this is something that's just been introduced, and then the system, the harmonized system, has been updated this year. there's been updates. Originally, the system was set up in 1998. So 1998, it was set up. And now in 2017, I think this is like the 5th update. I think that this is the latest update. They have updates every few years. It was 2007, for example, 2012. There was an update in 2017. Now there's a new update. And so what, in the update that's gone into effect this year, we have, it says recent amendments were designed to more accurately label trade in the English word is cuttlefish. And that's a classification of sea creatures that includes squid, ica, and octopuses, taco. So prior to 2017, the trade in cuttlefish were reported under what are called residual codes for mollusks. So it was recorded under what's called a residual, that's this. So you had some number and it was recorded here. Now they have something that's more specific. They've got a new code that's just for squids and octopuses. So now the trade can be more easily identified. So if you have countries that are overfishing, if they're overfishing, now we'll know more about it because we'll be able to see in the trade you're shipping all of that product to, for example, let's say Japan is importing a lot of certain kinds of fish, and it's coming from China, but in fact, probably the Chinese ships illegally fished it off the African coast. That's a lot of fish, a lot of fishing that goes on that way, and there's a lot of vessels, especially from China. It's not the only country that does it, but there's a lot of it going on. That's illegal fishing, and then it's being taken to another part of the world and then traded. Well, now if you're with this updated system, you may be able to better track that, and then so if that's the case, then countries can say, look, the oceans are being overfished. This fish is being overfished. The country that's doing it, you have to do something about that. You can't just trade like this. Another important area, and that was enhanced in this updated, that went into effect this year, is the identification of tropical woods. If you're interested, and I had a student last year that was interested in forestry. If you're interested in forestry and trade in tropical woods, for example, if you're interested in what's happening in illegal logging in Indonesia, for example, that now tropical woods have been clearly separated from non-tropical woods that'll enable better monitoring of the planet's tropical forests, tropical rainforests, so we'll be able to know better whether there is the trade in tropical woods. So we can see that this isn't just something of just if you're trading. This is something that for a lot of fields, if you're interested in a lot of areas, if you're interested in not just economics, but environmental science, fishery management, a lot of forestry management, a lot of areas. This is important to know. So this system and understanding it is very, very useful in order to understand that, in order to understand and study the international economy, and a lot of uses. So and as I say, I apologize because I really wanted to get online and do this. This is. But I'll want you to get online. This is the best site in the world. It's for this data. And this is where the United Nations, the UN Comtrade database, it's not the only one. You can go to the individual countries. And in fact, for example, it's very easy to go to the Ministry of Finance which publishes data, the same trade data for Japan, and I use that data as well. But if you want to just one source where you can, if you're studying trade in many countries, this is the place you want to go to in order to easily access this data. And in fact, this was the site that I used. All those 200 pages of maps, I used this site to collect data on every country in the world that was on that, and all of that trade, and all of that so now you can imagine how much work that was. Well, but it's also, I was able to do that because it's all at one site. There's no way if I had to go to each country, I would be able to do that. So this comes up, that's the way it looks. And then I also wanted to do, and what I wanted to show you, you can get data, but you can also visualize data. And the visualize is if you get the data, you're going to click there, and I'll show you what happens when you do that. If you want to visualize data, it'll enable you to take a country and show you the products that it exports and the products that it imports. And one of the things I had students last year that used this is a very good way to visualize a country's trade. And this shows you, for example, a particular country, and you can easily see that their exports may be tea, cut flowers, coffee. This is some tropical country in tropics. It might be in Africa, but this is a tropical country, and it shows all the areas, and it's all color coded, so you can visualize a country's trade in one. In one diagram. So that's is a very interesting tool to just help you to understand to understand trade in one diagram. As I say, unfortunately, we're not able to do that today, but I encourage you to go to the site. It's very easily accessed. It's just that, type that, or copy that and put that in. You'll get right there. You'll get right there, and you'll be able to start using this database. Now, here's how you use. Here's when you extract data. And you go to this. It's just to click that, and you get here. And when you get there, and as I say, unfortunately, I can't show you live, but we'll go through this, and I'll try to show you exactly how to do this. You can see there's type of products, goods or services. Data is much better for goods. It's much less data for trade and services. That data is improving, but it's still it's not as specific. Most trade in terms of value is still goods. This HS is, and you can do. This is for each of the update 92. I said, 92, I'm serious, it's 1992, this started, not 1998. That's 1992. So the first one, 1992, 1996, 2002, 2007, 2012, and from next year we'll see 2017, so there'll be a new tab that will be added for what I've described, the update, is that? That is recording. Good. Okay. So what you'll do is, if you want to see under the definitions, if you want to study how the definitions have changed, then you would click on that. What I always do is just as reported. We just want to see as reported. Some countries, especially developing countries, are slower to update to the revised headings. So that's they're supposed to do it, but they don't necessarily. Countries, especially developing countries, have not completely updated. So, but most countries that do. So this would be HS. That would be called HS4, 3, 2, 1. That might be HS0. But these are. So the code, so that will tell you that HS4, for example, that under the code of 2012, and then I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. Don't worry about that. I've never used this myself. Don't worry about that. Then what you do is you select. It says select desired data, and it says the periods, the years. So you type in, and you can type in up to 5 years, or you can put all if you want. But you can type in up to 5 if you want specific years. Say you want to look at trade 2016. Let's say I want to. Let's say I want to look at trade in fish. Let's say just all fish. So let's say I want to look at trade in all fish. That'd be 0. That code is 03. So that code is 03. Let's say we want to do that. We'll go, and let's say we want to look at 2016. And we want to look at trade between the European Union and Japan. Okay. So let's say we want to look at that. Then we say, okay, in 2016 for all fish. So you would put 2016 here. Reporters, this is important because does the country report its trade, or how does it report it? Not all countries report and give their data to the UN for this database. So you have to. The reporters is who has reported who has submitted this data to the UN for inclusion in the website. So the partners is who they trade to. So who do they trade to? So in this case, let's say here you would put, let's say the reporters, let's say the reporter is the European Union, and I think it's EU 28, 27. I think it's EU 28 is that's the code. If you're talking about trade from the European Union to Japan, you might type EU 28 here, and then partner would be you type Japan here. So Japan here, EU, and say the trade flows all, or could be exports. You could type exports or all. But so all would be all the countries and their trade with the world, for example. And then here, the HS as reported commodity code, that's the 2, 4, or 6 digit. And it's very easy to use because if you type 03, you have to know the code, of course. You have to know the code. But it'll help you with that, but also show you to find specific codes. There's other sites to do that. So the commodity codes, I would type, if you're interested just in overall fish, type 03 here, EU 28 there. The partner would be Japan, say exports from the EU to Japan in 2016. Then you would click, see the results. It downloads into a CVS file. It's like an Excel, which you can easily convert into Excel. It's a comma. What's comma? CSV. It's like, it looks like Excel, and then you can just change it to Excel, and then you can manipulate the data. So this comes, boom, it'll come right into your computer. Seconds, and you get this data. And you can put, if you put all the reporters, then it'll give all the countries. Let's say all the countries that trade in seafood, that trade with the world. So you can look at the individual countries. If you put all reporters, partners, the world, period 2016, and then 03, you would get all of the countries of the world that report their trade in seafood, in fish, and you would see the exports and imports from each of those countries. Now, I'll give an example in just a moment to show you how that works. But in terms of the commodity codes, there are also other places that you can find the commodity codes. And a site that I really like to use for that is in finding the harmonized system codes. Here's a site. It's the foreigntrade.com reference hscode.htm. This is what shippers use. So shippers use it in order to find out the code for their products. They go here, the international shippers will go to this site, and this has the headings. These are the headings above the chapters. So these are the groupings. 01 to 05 are animal and animal products. It shows 06 to 015 vegetable products, foodstuffs, mineral products, chemicals, all the way down to what's called miscellaneous, 90 to 97. So each one of these are the headings above chapter, and each of the two-digit, the chapter is the two-digit number. So for example, if you're interested in textiles, you would click textiles here. Or what it says here, it's enter keywords. If you don't know the code and you're trying to find it, which is the purpose of this, what if you don't know the code? You don't know where it is. You've gone to this site, but you're not sure what the code is. We'll go to this site. Go to this site, type the code, and it says enter keyword. It says enter a keyword. You don't know the code. That's the point. This is to help you find what the code is. Enter the keyword. It'll help you find the proper code. So this is designed to facilitate international trade for the commercial shippers. So people that are actually doing out in the real world that do shipping, that go that. Maybe you have that job. You know that your job is to help coordinate shipment of products. Well, now you're going to use this site, and wouldn't you know it, it's in Japanese. You can get it in Japanese. So it's very easy. It's got any language that you want. So you don't have to worry about English. In this case, it's just all in Japanese. You know, whatever language, pretty much, you know, any major significant language in the world, it's right there. And it shows, and of course, then it comes up for that advertising that may be related, you know, then it's Japanese language advertising as well. So it's very, very flexible kind of, this is, I find it very useful to use this if I don't know the product and I want to find out what the code is. This is a great site to use it. As I say, if you want to use it in your native language, it's real easy. So there's no reason to get confused. There's no reason this is very, very user-friendly kind of information. The next site that I want to show you and talk about, much of the data I use that for the trade data. So when I showed like the trade in goods, but much of the other data that I use that I presented, just the basic economic data, data on agriculture, the amount of food area, food production, that kind of information. I got off of this site, the World Bank data site. This is absolutely a wonderful, wonderful data site. In fact, I used it last night. I used it last night. I was looking, I was reading something where there was an article in the New York Times that said that former President Barack Obama stated how that food yields, but climate change was having a negative impact on food yield, and that it's already changing, that food yields are already dropping. I thought, really? I hadn't heard that. Really? And so I went to this site. In about 30 seconds, I found a chart on this site that showed that he was completely wrong. Absolutely completely wrong. That in fact, that in 2014, the last year for which data was available, that the yield per hectare for cereal production reached an all-time high, and that cereal production per hectare has gone up almost 20% in the last 10 years. Per hectare in 10 years, 20%. It's amazing increases in food productivity. So you've got this former president making this statement. It's complete nonsense. And the thing is, I went to this site, and I was on the New York Times. I wrote, well, here's the data. He said this, but this is come on, people. This is this is like real easy. It took me 30 seconds to find this. So this is the kind of thing that when you see people make statements and they make claims about something, you can actually go, this is a wonderful site. I said, well, this is the World Bank. You may argue this is the World Bank, so this is fairly, but as I say, this is absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. It's very easy to use. You type in your data. You want GDP. You want population. All kinds of. It's health, food, forestry, environment, economics. It's absolutely incredible. It's by country. It's just and stuff that you won't even. You have no idea that it exists. When I used this last night, I found they had data on what's called calorie shortage. That in the shortage of people's food intake by country, by year, compared to what their like minimal requirement. So you can show. And the data shows, for example, that basically it means global hunger is declining very, very rapidly. And you can see how much in each country these are estimated, and very easy to find. Whatever kind of thing you could imagine, whatever you could imagine, just type this in. Go here, and just type in something. Now, I think that this is only in English. I think. It might be in French, because what I did was I check? I checked on, because you can do it in Japanese, but and I checked the Japanese site then goes to, it's a local site, and then it'll have data, but then I think you end up back here in English. So I think you have to use English. For this, I think I would try it just to make sure, but I think you have to use it in English. This is an amazing amount of data. Absolutely, in what they've collected it from all kinds of sources. So this is not only their own analysts that have done this, but they're collecting from all over the world, wherever they can find appropriate international data that is of interest, of economic, environmental, health, vast field, and it's put on this site. Absolutely, I think, and I use this for most of the maps that I made. I got the data from this site. Absolutely fantastic site. So couldn't more strongly, for your research, these are tools. These are two tools that are very, very important to use if you're interested in understanding and studying the international economy. So that's that site. The next one that I want to talk about is the UN National Accounts publications. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, in fact, before I go there, because I want to go through, let's see what time it is, just to check on the time here. 46. We're fine, we're about halfway through now. Let me show you, because what I did was I wanted to show you the results of, there's global silk trade, there we go. this is, so what I did was this I did for global silk trade, and that is 5002. That is the code 5002. So 5002, and that's silk. So that's like raw, it's basically raw silk. I think that's what this is. Right, this is raw, it's silk, raw silk. So it's not spun into clothing, it's just you've gotten the silk, which of course insects make that in their cocoons, what we call caterpillars, and they make, and then you have to, I think you basically have to do it by hand. It's very labor intensive activity. Very light, but it's very valuable. So what I did was I downloaded, I did that 5002. In fact, how I did that, I would have gone back to here. Let me go back. I did here. I did it for 5 years. 2016, 15, 14, 13, 12, so 5 years. I did all reporters, partners with the world, all trade flows, and I did 5,000 and type 5002 there. Click, you get that. Here's the database that I got from that, and it takes a minute. That took me a minute. Maybe another few minutes, I cleaned it up, the database, to make it so that I could get it all on a page and simplify it. But here's what the data looks like when you download it. The classification, this is like H4. H4 refers to 2012. So H4 is 2012. H3 is 2007. So this tells you the code that the country used in reporting for that year. So, for example, here is Angola. Angola in under H3 in 2012, because they hadn't made the updated code in 2012, but they did in 2014. So they've imported, Angola imported, they said 9,000 kilograms of raw silk in 2014, 352 in 2015, and then it gives the total, the trade value, and that's in US dollars. So this is the US dollars. One of the things that I did, this has the classification, the year, this is imports or exports. The reporter code, this is the country code number. So each country has its own code, country. Then I show you the reporter. I don't show you the world, but this is trade with the rest of the world, with that country. The weight of silk, imported or exported, the trade value. This shows just what the data, there may be some things you want to note about the data. And then what I did here was I created this variable, value per kilogram. And one of the reasons what I do when I get data like this, it just lets me check and see, is there anything curious about the data. For example, here, the trade value, 9,000 kilograms into Angola, but its value was only $593. And then the next year it had 352 kilograms, but it was worth $4,000. Well, there's something funny there. So that also helps you to find out if there's something that looks either strange or maybe there's something else going on. Is the product more valuable? You can tell, you can see whether a country is shipping more valuable. It may have the code, but maybe it's shipping more valuable product or lower value product. So that'll tell you a lot as well. So that's one of the things that you can do with this data. But you can see the trade is not very high, but let's go down and we'll find out. See each of these countries. Here's Bangladesh. They import import silk. So they imported $2 million, 486,000 kilograms of raw silk, 460,000. 2013, 2012, 2013, you can see, well, that's how much silk goes in. And what we'll see a little bit later is I show you the clothing that's made from silk, that's trade in silk clothing. So you can see, you'll be able to see, let's see, they imported the silk. It had this the reported value, and then you can see what they made it into. And then you can make some estimations of what's the value that they added. What's the value that they created by turning that silk into clothing and then exporting it? So, and that's one of the things that you can do. But you can see here, here's Azerbaijan, more than $1 million. Bangladesh is another country. You can see other countries are fairly small, but now let's go, because we can see China. Look at China here. There's China. China export, $368 million. So China is the big exporter of silk, which is, of course, for centuries, this is where the silk originally came from. The Europeans in I believe the 14th or 15th century, it might have been Marco Polo that brought, when he lived in China and then went back to Europe, I think he might have been the one that brought silk, but Europeans brought silk, and then the industry, and so you had trade. But China is still, and for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, has been the main source of, and it still is. And you can see and you can see that's going to tell you what the international value also. So $48 a kilogram in 2012, 2013, $56 a kilogram. Here's export 2014, $53 a kilogram, $48 so you can see that's kind of going around a similar price, and that's expressed in US dollars. You can then convert that into RMB, Chinese yuan, to see what the domestic price in each year is, because you'll know what the exchange rate is. So, and this tells you as China reports it. So this is the China trade. These are exports. There's a little bit of imports, but most of it are exports. And you can see it doesn't look like it's through Hong Kong either. It looks like it's direct trade. And then we can go down and we see, well, what countries buy? What countries seem to appear to buy a lot? And you can see a lot of European countries. There's Germany. Germany buys, they export and import. You see that, that's interesting. You can see they export and import, and it's similar amounts. So are they exporting and importing the same product? Probably not. They might be growing some domestically and some locally. But France just imports. So that tells you that there's certainly production that goes on in Germany, and export and import, but France just imports, and you can see the figures there. So France imports, you can see, and you see that figures. So let's look at those figures, about $20 million. Greece, hardly any. Greenland, but here's Italy. Import. Now, but there's some export, because Italy has had a silk industry for centuries. So it's had a silk industry. But it's doing a lot of, this is called re-export, re-import. It comes in, it goes out, it goes out, it comes in. So there's a little, so it shows that trade as well. This is a bit complicated to really understand. This, I usually don't pay much attention to that. I just focus on the export and import. But you'll look here, you'll see, here's import. 2015, 42 million. 2014, 49 million. You see these prices, 63, 58, 63, 58, 63. It's a little bit higher than China. Well, that might also be telling you the quality. Might tell you a little bit about the quality. So that's, then let's compare that with Germany, for example. Is Germany, the exports 60, imports 54. 62.50, 61.50. That might be that they're exporting a little bit higher quality. That could indicate that. Here's let's look at France. The import. See, look at France. 82.75. 75 imports. 70. You see those prices are a little bit higher. Well, the French, the Germans, and the Italians all in the same currency. It's all in the euro. So this might tell you. This gives you a clue, for example, that maybe the French are importing a higher quality they might be importing a higher quality. Might be that, it might be something else, but at least you can get some clues about this kind of thing. As I say, you can see the German exports are definitely more valuable. The German imports are pretty close, are close to the price that you see in China. So what else might that tell you? It probably comes from China. Now you can find that directly, but at least this will give you an indication that shipments that probably come from China because the price is about the same. So, and you can also check to see if one country is saying the value of the products that they're exporting is a certain amount, and the country that's importing it says that the value is a lot different. That might also tell you something. So we can see the Italian is a lot of it, but it's pretty much at global, at pretty similar prices and lower prices than the French trade. So that might tell you, well, the French might be importing better silk, or the Italians are just doing better deals, who knows. But you can see, and here's Japan, import, there you go. And Japan's a big importer of silk. So there, and that's going to be for production of clothing in Japan. It looks like a little bit higher value, so they might be importing a little bit more valuable silk. So you can see those countries really stand out. You see Japan, Germany, Italy, France, China. So right away, you just get this data, get like that, and you can look the whole world and see which are the major countries. So if you want to study a global industry and trade in a global industry, just do that for the whole world. That took me a minute. This took me less than 5 minutes to create this table for you. Less than 5, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. That's it. Just boom, 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 boom. Convert to PDF. Boom. Here it is. That's it. There's no, but I'm able to show you the whole world, so we can see the major countries, and then right away, in a few minutes, you can figure out who are the major trading countries, and just focus on those. So if you wanted to look at the silk industry, for example, or pick an industry, right? This 4-digit industry, whatever industry you want, whatever product you want, in a few minutes, you can find out the international trade in that. So that's what you're supposed to do for this class. I assure you, what this means is, if you get interested in something, you can go on and find out the major trading companies in that product in minutes, and you can do a quick analysis in minutes to find that out. So this is really, that's how useful the time that you can save. Korea is another one. Romania is another one. Again, clothing. 62, so that value is close to the world price, maybe a little bit higher. So Romania, Korea is another. Just how quickly I can identify, and you see the countries that are not. There's Singapore a bit, but so we've had Romania, Korea, Japan, China, Italy, Germany, France. We're almost at the end of the world. So we've been in just minutes. We've done, and there's a few other countries that are a little bit, but they're not major. Tunisia, Turkey, the United Arab Emirates. So those are clearly, but the UK, here's the UK, it's almost nothing. Very little. Very, very little. So that's not significant. The US, no, very little. US doesn't have a major industry. And this tells you, this is the meaning. 6 is both, this tells you these values. I calculated the median value to see, to get an idea. Some of these high figures, that's probably just noise. There is noise, what we call noise in the data. It's just, there were mistakes made. It's some low amount. maybe they put the wrong weight or the wrong price. So there's something. They didn't pay $304 a kilogram to import silk into Zimbabwe. They don't have. Nobody has that much money in Zimbabwe. Nobody has any money. So you know that something's funny there. Here's Vietnam. Vietnam comes up. Especially, you can see 2012, 2013. But then look how it suddenly drops in 2014. Look at the drop, the imports in 2014. So you'll say, if you're analyzing the industry, you'll say, well, what happened in Vietnam in 2014 in the silk business? Then you focus, then you Google, Vietnam silk imports, silk industry, silk clothing industry 2014, and then you'll maybe find out something happened. You'll find out what's going on. Some company went out of business, something they had some problem, maybe they had a fire and the company, the plant burned down, something. In other words, something happened, because this kind of trade, this is just a few companies. It's not going to be like, this is not a huge amount of trade, but, and if you're analyzing, if you're interested in the industry, you can find out country by country. So we really have been able to identify very quickly, and as I say, Germany, Italy, France, China, South Korea, Japan, and a bit Vietnam. Now we now know the main global trade, and China's the main producer, and all those other countries are importers. Now what we can do, the next thing we do is we look at, what you want to do is look at the flow of product, because that's one of the things that we're interested in. We're interested in flow and value added. So let's say we got silk. So we have China, Japan, South Korea, Germany, seems to have some production, France, Italy, and then we can see the production, we can see which direction the trade of 5,002, the exports, imports, most imports, Germany's both imports and exports, France imports, Italy imports, some exports in Italy, so we can see that there's that flow. Now we're going to look at 5007. 5007 is silk clothing. So now we'll see the trade in silk clothing. And again, how long did this take me to do? Just a few minutes. So again, this is the miracle of the internet, that your ability to do this is studies that took me minutes to put together, and I've been able to at least do this basic analysis in just minutes. This would have taken, you could not have collected this data 15 years ago. It would have just been, the effort would have been beyond any ability to do. So you're living in a time where your ability to do this is amazing. So let's pull this up. Now, here's silk. Let me get this. Okay, there we go. Now we can look and see. Well, we should see the trade in silk imports. Now, some of this may see some countries like Albania that didn't report any imports of silk or exports of raw silk, but they do report imports of silk, some exports of silk, but mostly imports. So you can see the imports. Yeah, this is mostly, you can see that's mostly imports to those countries. Now you can see the exports. There's Argentina, not much. There's Australia a bit. That might be there's Austria. There's a little bit in Austria. Let's see, you can see those numbers. Probably about $10 million. So Austria, but a little bit over $11 million. Now look at the prices, you can see the values are a lot higher. So the per kilogram value there, that's of course a lot higher because you've added value by manufacturing. So you can get a sense of what's the value created from manufacturing, because these are our final products. So we go there. There's Belgium. There's another one, 7 million. That's what's going on here. It's going on. Why am I getting that? What's going on there? Oh, I think I'm getting you single pay. Here we go. Okay, now I have to do this over again. Okay, there we go. Oops. Let's go zoom out. There we go. Okay. Now let's go down here. There's Brazil, a little bit over 20 million. Go to the next page. Bulgaria, 10 million. So you can see these countries, they have these industries, not very big. There's China, Hong Kong. There's one. The interesting thing is that Hong Kong didn't report much in the way of imports and exports of they're importing, exporting woven fabric. So this is finished product. Now, you notice Hong Kong said they didn't import or export any raw silk. So what they're importing and exporting, finished silk products. That might be just passing through. That's re-export. So these are re-exports. That's probably a lot of it, because you'll see the export and re-export is the same figure. So they're importing, then they're just turning around and sending it out. That's what's going on. They're not. That's just shipping through. That's just telling you the shipment of silk that's going just through Hong Kong, and they're importing some of it and consuming it and selling it in Hong Kong. Let's look at China. Not surprising. It's a big industry there. It's a $1 billion export industry. In China, that's a big value. Exports more than $1 billion in 2012, almost $1 billion in 2013, 2014, 2015. You'll see a decline in the value in dollars. And the question is that in currency or is that real? Well, look at the amount. 11,900,000, 9,600,000, 5,100,000, 7,700,000. You can see there's definitely a drop. That the exports, for some reason, China's exports of finished silk are dropping. Well, is that because China's becoming too expensive, labor is becoming too expensive? Maybe that's it. That's a question. You'll see that, what's going on there? There's something going on. Let's look at the value of the exports. $89 in 2012, 2013, 100, 2014, 176, 2015, 94. It's kind of all over the place. So it's hard to see. Maybe there's a shift to higher value. That might be what's happening. A higher value. And smaller amounts. That's the kind of. But you can at least ask these kind of questions. Ask the kind of question. Again, let's say you're an analyst. You're analyzing the industry. You look at these figures. You get a hypothesis, and then the next step is Google. China silk. Find out what's going on. It allows you to get hypotheses. Hypotheses about what may be going on in the industry in that country. So you can see that comes up very quickly, very easily. We'll go on. In all of these countries, not much is going on there. This is another page, not much is happening. Here we go, Germany. Remember we talked about Germany there? There's France. France is a pretty big country, exporting. They import and export, and you'll notice there, look how the exports, they're fairly large. It's much smaller than China, but still, remember, France imported a lot, is what 20, 30, 40 million? The export, so they're creating a lot of value. And you can see they were importing fairly high value silk. It looked like they might be importing high value silk, and they're exporting the exports seem to be fairly high per kilogram. So that's very interesting. Well, now you're starting to develop a hypothesis about the French silk clothing manufacturing industry. And then we can compare that with Germany and Italy to see, well, what might be going on there. So there's, and what's that, like silk suits? There's if you're going to buy silk suits made in France, that's probably a lot of that. And you can see the importing are lower value, so they're exporting a higher value and importing a lower value of silk clothing. But it also might be that they're finishing. It might be that they're doing finishing, because you'll notice a lot of other countries are very small. So France, it might be that they're importing fabric and doing some finishing and then adding value and exporting. So you have that. There's Germany. Germany, the export's $193 per kilogram, 193, 214, 216, 182. Do you see that? The figures are about the same, imports and exports. 193, 214. Let's go up there. Let's see, exporting 216, 289, 322, 253. You see how that's higher? The values in France are higher, so they're creating a higher value product probably than German. That's telling you that probably the silk manufacturing of clothing in Germany is not as high valued. That the French companies, the companies that are doing that in France, are doing a higher quality. Let's see Italy. Italy's very famous for clothing. Let's see what's going on in Italy. There's India. I might have missed India before. I might want to go back, and it might be interesting. I'll give you these. I'll make these available to you. You can just go through them. And again, you can get ideas about other products if you're interested in analyzing those. India, big exporter, and it might be that they're doing that. Let's go back. Let's see, did I miss that? We don't have to ask questions. We can just go to the data and see. There we go. There's 2002. Let's see if I missed India. Single page. There we go. That's fine. Let's go back. I did miss it. It's imported. Yeah, India's another big country there, and it's imports. And it looks like the biggest importer in the world. So India is a huge importer. It's a huge importer of silk. Well, where do you think they're buying it from? Buying it from China. Got to be buying it from China. Where else are they going to buy all that silk from? Because nobody else is exporting it like that. Well, that should tell you right away. Then you can go to the trade between the two countries and see it exactly. But that's what that's almost certain. It's almost certain that that's what you'll see. It's almost certain. And you'll look at that. See these prices: 45, 46, 46, 44. Those imports. It's pretty close to the Chinese numbers. It's pretty close. So that's where it comes from. And we'll want to see. Well, remember, this is a global market. It's a global market for these products. So we'll see. Well, what's the value that India is getting for its exports of silk compared to the European countries that are doing this? So let's do that. Now let's go back here. So we got India there. There's India. There's the exports. 100. You see there, 160. Let's see there. India export 160, and also look, the code change there. So that's another. It may mean the same thing, but you got to make sure about that. In fact, let's see, 161, 175, 174, 188, 130. So those are the 130, 188, 174, 175. I think that's pretty close, actually. I think that's pretty close to Italy, for example. Let's check that just to make sure. Go back to Italy. Oh, Italy's on the same page, isn't it? No, it's on the next page. There's India, Italy higher value. The exports are, no, not the, quite similar actually. That's quite similar. So it's telling you that India's exports, of the value of its exports per kilogram of finished silk is about the same as Italy. So that's telling you they're probably doing some fairly high quality manufacturing of silk product there. Another country that might want to look at is Thailand, actually. Let's see if Thailand, there's Italy. We can see Japan should come up right here. There's another, look at that. That's exports. Japan is still is a country that, but you'll see, look at how those exports are falling year by year. See that? The export, you look at the exports of Japan, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, year by year almost, it's declining in value. The amount is about the same, but the value is falling. So, what's going on there? That's an interesting question. But it might mean the industry is shrinking, it's having a lot of problems, labor costs are high here. That might be the case. If you're interested, again, these are hypotheses. You ask a question, then you can go answer the question. And then by answering the question, then you're going deeper and deeper in your analysis and your understanding more and more about the particular industry in the particular country. So that's what analysis is. That's what, when you analyze something, that's how you do it. It's real basic stuff, and we're not talking rocket science. We're not talking about complex mathematics. This is real basic. This is just adding. If you could add, subtract, divide, multiply, and think, that's all you have to do this. You don't have to know calculus to do this. This is just real, but simple. But you could also start putting together year by year. Maybe you start thinking about what these are supply. These are price and these are supply and price points. So you can start figuring out some demand curves. So you can do that as well. So that's also a possibility. So. Here, look at Madagascar. So Madagascar but they import. That's interesting. What on earth is Madagascar importing all that silk for? I don't know. Why would a third world country like that be one of the world's bigger importers of silk? That's why. I don't know. Maybe there's something going on there. Now we just found out. I never knew, but there must be something cultural. And look at the value of the silk that they import. So look at the value. That's really high. They're high. Madagascar is importing, and they're not exporting. They're just importing it. What's going on there? What is going on in that country in the silk market? I don't know. That's interesting, and it's high value. So that's the kind of questions. I just noticed that. It's like, what is going on there? Well, that's like you can start looking that up. Well, let's say even if you're a reporter, you're a business reporter, you find that and you start typing. You can write now you can write an article, the Madagascar silk industry. So now you've got something you can write about. And somebody might, maybe that's what you do. Maybe that you're a freelance writer. And you go and you find out something, what's going on in the Madagascar silk industry? You write an article and submit it to the Wall Street Journal or something, and get paid for it. I don't know, So, and you probably can do that without leaving your house. You can do all that. So there's an example right there. There's Morocco import. Again, Morocco imports a bit. Let's see. There's Pakistan is import, probably from India. That's probably from India. There's Nigeria. Does a lot of importing. Nigeria does a lot of importing. Well, that's interesting. Now here's where it gets funny. Do you notice? Look at the values for Nigeria, 2012, 2013, and 2014, and you can see something's funny. And they have the 6, so they flag it in 2014. There's something's not right with those figures. Probably the figures in 2012 and 2013 aren't correct. Something is funny about that. It's probably, yeah, there's something going on. Those totals of kilograms in Nigeria in 2012 and 2013, that can't be correct. But they import a lot of silk. Again, it might be something cultural that's going on there. There's Portugal, does a fair bit of importing. There's Russia. These are countries that just import. There's Korea. Remember we noted Korea. You can see the exports a little bit low. Well, pretty close to European, maybe a little bit lower, but a fair bit of trade in that. So there we go. Well, we've done, there's in Thailand, no, not much in Thailand, Tunisia's got a bit. There's the United Arab Emirates importing, a lot of importing, but some exporting. Some of it might be just trade. They're just trading this, importing and exporting. It's like UK export and import, the imports and exports are almost the same. It might be just, the re-imports are immediate, but they might be importing and then shipping, and there might be some more trade there. Vietnam, we mentioned that a little bit. There's USA, a lot of imports. That's your final finished product. That's not surprising that the US is a big market. So there you go. That's there we go. That's minutes. That took minutes to put. In fact, it took me in my discussing this with you took a lot longer than collecting the data and preparing that. So but I've done some top line analysis. It's just minutes to do that. There's a whole world out there. So, you know, and that's how easy it is to get this and analyze it. And I'll bet you got some ideas just from watching that, and I got some ideas too. I want to know what's going on in Madagascar. You know, so let's see, is that where we know? That is the next class. That is not this class. Where are we? Let's see. Here we are. Oh, that's not it. That's the last. No, there we are. We're back there. So that's all that from that site. In a few minutes, it took me 10 minutes to collect, download, put together. That was like 10, 15 minutes to do all that. And as I say, it took me more time to talk to you about it than it did for me to actually collect the data, which also tells you how quickly you can collect this information and how quickly you can actually put together lectures on this stuff. There's that, the World Bank. The national accounts. This is the great site to download national accounts information. We're going to be spending a bit of time next time talking about national accounts data, because this is your macroeconomic data. This is your source of macro GDP and GDP components data. And one of the things that we're going to talk about next time, I may introduce this a little bit, is on macroeconomic, give you a little bit of a discussion on macroeconomic analysis and data and how to think about it in terms of imports and exports. We'll be going through that next time. But this is the main source, and I suppose we have a few minutes, so I'll just introduce this. We're going to shift gears here. We have 4 more minutes. Well, let's not. It's kind of, I think, I'll send this off to you so that you can go over this. What we'll talk about to open the class, let's do that now. We're going to talk about what, you've heard the term GDP or gross domestic product. Well, now you're going to find out, well, what does that actually mean? This tells you what this, so we'll talk about what this means, what are some of the shortcomings of this data. This is a very, very important mathematical identities. The mathematical identities, and this is for macroeconomics, what are called the national output identities. And these allow us to do some very, very interesting things and make some very, very important observations about international trade, about savings, and about investment that are very, very, it's very, very valuable and very, very interesting. It comes out of analyzing the national output identity. So this is a very important thing. I want you to just go over this, familiarize yourself with this between now and next week as to what that is. Very interesting stuff about net exports and why net exports does not. It's not necessarily the case that a country that exports more than it imports that's necessarily a sign of wealth. That may be, but it may not be, and we're going to discuss why that's the case. And it has to do with savings rates, investment in the country, and in fact, savings rate that net exports. What we'll see is that net exports, that are exports minus imports, are also the same as net savings in a country. It's a very interesting thing that comes out. Very profound, really. It's a very profound thing that we find from analyzing the national output identity. We'll go through this. It may look a little bit scary, but when you can understand that, and I know this year, the last year I just presented this to the class because I didn't even understand the level of the students that we're at, and a lot of these poor students had no idea what I was talking about. So I think you'll be a little bit better prepared. There's a smaller class, but so this is what we're going to talk about. This is just some very simple manipulation. This is all just algebra. It's real simple kind of algebra. But so using simple algebra, you can say some very profound things about national savings, investment, and net trade. So very, very profound macroeconomic statements that can be made just from very simple stuff. So I assure you, after going through this class, you will have the tools. You will have the tools that you will need basically to. You could be a business reporter. I assure you that the level that you will have from what I've given you in this class, that you master this, you will be able to write for business publications on national economies, on trade, industry. You'll be able to do all that just with this. So really, these are skills that you're even at your underclass level with these skills. This is the abilities that you'll be able to do, the tools that the things you'll be able to do with these very basic tools. And in fact, that is the end of that's my last slide. We'll be going over this next time, but we've come to the end. The bell's going to ring in just a moment. So thank you, and we will see you next time. I will probably come up. I'll give you an assignment that will involve you making some observations that are similar to what I've done here today. I think that'll be a good exercise. Last year I had an exercise that probably didn't quite work as well. I had, so now having gone through this and done it this way, I think I'll have you do something at a 4-digit level. And you'll be able to do this kind of analysis and tell me about the global trade for some specific 4-digit level products. Oh, thank you. And I think we should be able to get this.